Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something pretty unique. It's, well, let's call it unconventional.
Definitely unconventional.
We've got these excerpts from a YouTube video transcript. It details what they call an investigative hypnosis session about Pope Francis.
Yeah, and our job here really is just to unpack the claims being made.
Exactly. We're talking about claims regarding his death, his DNA, even him being in multiple dimensions, apparently, and prophecies about the papacy, too.
We're not here to say if it's true or not,
Right.
just to explore the information that's presented in this source.
Absolutely. Just laying it out there.
And the setup itself is interesting. They mention Jeremy, the telepathic support, and Ioannisima, the external operator.
Using the Grifasi method, it says. And a sponsor, Sandy Kadir.
Right, and apparently there's a fixed part, set questions, and then a more free-flowing exploration part.
Which kind of shapes how all this information comes out, I guess.
It does.
And let's be honest, the claims are, well, they're pretty extraordinary. Navigating dimensions, this mention of non-human DNA.
Reptiloid DNA specifically.
Right. And prophecies about Rome falling, esoteric influences in the Vatican. It's a lot.
It really is.
So for you, the learner, listening in, whatever your background is, we're just going to guide you through this. We'll highlight the most surprising bits without getting totally swamped.
Yeah, stick to what the transcript actually says. Okay, so where does it start?
Well, the process described begins with relaxation for Jeremy, the telepathic support.
Right, to connect with Pope Francis in the here and now, as they put it, April 27th, 4 p.m. apparently.
That's specific.
Right.
And then the operator guides Jeremy to, and this is their term, decode the Pope's DNA.
And this is where that reptiloid claim comes in.
Yeah. The transcript states the finding is 93% human and 7% reptiloid.
Again, just reporting what's in the source. This whole reptilian humanoid idea, it pops up in various, conspiracy theories.
Themes of hidden control, power structures, that kind of thing. It sort of fits that mold, doesn't it?
It seems to, yeah. That moves on to his location.
Which isn't a physical place, apparently.
No, described as between different dimensions, navigating different levels, but unstable.
And maybe influenced by some external force. Or waves.
That's the suggestion. This idea of other dimensions, it's common in a lot of esoteric or spiritual thinking, right?
Yeah.
Realities beyond what we normally see.
Then the timing of death. They question if it coincides with Monday, April 21st, 2025.
And Jeremy, the telepathic support, mentions feeling a time-space lag.
A lag. What does that mean here?
Well, it's linked to different stages of death connected to energetic bodies.
Energetic bodies.
And this idea that the 21st was just the date it had to be said. So a difference between the event and the announcement.
Right, which connects to the next point. Any hidden meaning in announcing his departure around the time of the resurrection announcement?
The perception reported is, yes, a strategic sense, manipulation of information.
To create a specific symbolic impact, a kind of vibratory effect.
That seems to be the idea presented, using timing for maximum symbolic weight.
Okay, now we get into prophecies. First, the one about the last pope.
Ah, yes, the one presiding over great trouble, the fall of Rome, the end of the papacy, that one.
And the feeling reported from the telepathic support.
Agitation, intensity, and this sense that religious leaders are actually afraid this prophecy could come true.
So they're trying to maintain the status quo because of that fear.
That's the reported perception.
Yeah.
It's interesting how old prophecies get mapped onto current events,
Definitely. Then there's another one mentioned, the prophecy of Malachi.
Right, predicting the destruction of a city of 7 hills, last judgment, under a Pope Petrus Romanus.
And the perception here, different.
Yeah, described as flat, empty, not much vibration or clear meaning, apparently.
But there was a vision.
Yes, white flags, symbolizing peace. So a contrast in the feel of these two prophecies within the session.
Interesting. Okay, shifting gears a bit. The geopolitical situation after Pope Francis.
The feeling is summed up as concerns and many issues. Discussions about the Church's place in the world.
And that analogy they used.
A large game of checkers. Global players, moving pieces, aware of the Church's influence, but also maybe its weaknesses.
So seeing the Church as a significant player on the world stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads into the next conclave. Any esoteric information mentioned about that?
Yes. The perception reported is heavy energy, esoteric influence, and boiling mental bodies among the electors.
Oily mental bodies. Okay.
Yeah. And the idea of manipulation again, marionettes.
To make sure they elect someone who keeps the Church's power intact.
That's the suggestion. And maybe some twists and turns, like a movie plot.
The idea of hidden hands guiding big decisions. A common narrative thread.
And did they get a vision of who this next pope might be?
According to the transcript, yes. A tall African man, gentle face, doesn't seem too old.
Okay, just relaying the information as it's given.
Now, they circle back to Pope Francis being between dimensions. They wanted more detail on that.
And what was the elaboration?
Jeremy described a connection between our dimension, the terrestrial one, and an etheric dimension.
Where the deceased are supposed to be.
That's the idea. And then even more ethereal dimensions beyond that.
And the Pope's movement.
Perceived as random, but also that he's being followed, guided even.
Guided by what?
Powerful energies creating fluid pathways, almost like he's a representation and embodiment of these energies. The etheric dimension concept pops up a lot in certain metaphysical circles, doesn't it? That intermediate realm.
It does. So who or what are these guiding entities?
Many energies mentioned, but 4 or 5 seem more important.
Any specifics?
Yeah, this is striking. A vision of an Egyptian deity-like figure.
Okay.
And also a very cold consciousness described as artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
Described as having little emotion, just focused on making sure Pope Francis goes where directed, like a shepherd with sheep.
An ancient deity and AI. That's quite the mix.
It is.
So is Pope Francis aware of all this, according to the session?
Partially aware is the perception, but also surprised he's not ending up where he expected to go.
And then there's talk of pacts.
Yes, pacts and contracts. Made consciously, apparently, with these guiding entities.
In exchange for what?
Delivering certain messages, staying silent on other things, and in return, getting power and a long pontificate.
This idea of deals with non-physical beings. It's a theme in some esoteric traditions.
Definitely.
Okay, digging even deeper, the actual moment of physical death. What did the session reveal there?
Jeremy described being, metaphysically, in a room. Few physical people, but many non-physical entities present.
Including?
Pope John Paul II's consciousness, apparently.
And a date came up.
April 18th was mentioned, along with the years 2025, 2032, and 2017 kind of flashing through. Specific details again.
And the process of dying itself, those energetic bodies again?
Yes. The perception was they extinguish one by one like candles.
Which one first?
The mental body, reportedly, marked by a final breath. But the sexual body is perceived as the last to go.
And that maintains the physical body somehow, while other parts are already functioning elsewhere.
That's the description given in this specific esoteric framework.
Okay, let's get back to that time lag between the event and the announcement. What's the cause, according to this source?
The word used is programming.
Programming.
Yeah. The idea is to make sure this time difference has a really powerful impact across dimensions, across time.
So it's non-physical programming, but it affects the physical.
That's the claim, causing organs and functions to stop at different spacetimes. Might even need artificial support after the body itself starts shutting down.
That raises questions about cause and effect within this system, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
And the purpose behind programming this time lag.
To create a massive symbolic, energetic, and vibratory impact from his death or departure.
As a way to control the narrative. Maintain control over believers.
That seems to be the perceived intention, using a big event to influence belief on a mass scale.
And this kind of temporal programming, is it just for the Pope?
The transcript suggests no. It's supposedly used for other globally influential figures, too.
As a way to tweak or control collective consciousness.
That's the implication, expanding the scope beyond just this one case.
Okay, the Resurrection Day announcement again. Why does that supposedly amplify the vibratory frequency?
The perception described is an extra layer forming around the Earth.
A layer. Doing what?
Acting as both protection and containment, keeping the vibratory information tied to the population, stopping it from diluting across dimensions.
To maximize its impact.
Exactly. This idea of a vibratory layer affecting consciousness is found in some New Age or metaphysical thought.
Right. Now, those religious leaders fearing the last Pope prophecy, why the fear exactly?
According to the transcript, it boils down to loss of power.
Simple as that.
Well, the idea is that the existing cracks in the church.
Things like the scandals, financial issues, influence systems, rigid beliefs.
Right. Those vulnerabilities could be made worse by the prophecy coming true, potentially causing the whole system to collapse.
So it's about institutional stability.
That seems to be the core concern reported.
And where do these cracks supposedly come from? And how are they maintained?
The source describes them originating from opening vibratory pockets of consciousness from the Earth.
Pockets of consciousness.
Yeah, accumulating from individual awareness over time. And the idea is the more attention these cracks get, the bigger they grow.
So religious leaders are worried the Pope's death will draw more attention to them.
That's the reported concern, yes. A kind of interplay between individual awareness and the institution's problems.
Looking ahead from this energetic perspective, what changes are foreseen for the Church?
Not much significant change immediately, apparently. Too much energetic inertia.
Inertia.
But underneath, there's a real fear of change. So lots of effort on different levels to keep things as they are.
Like the analogy used.
A house of cards. Looks stable now, but could collapse easily. Paints a picture of internal pressure, doesn't it?
It does. What about projecting further, say, to April 2026?
Then the perception shifts. An internal awakening of consciousness within the Church.
Leading to
High-ranking people leaving. Not necessarily publicized right away, but it weakens the power structures internally.
And that could lead to financial or other issues coming out.
That's the suggested chain of events. Internal shifts causing external consequences down the line.
Okay, let's revisit the boiling mental bodies in the conclave. What's behind that, according to this?
Attributed to manipulation from metaphysical or esoteric consciousnesses.
Why target the mental bodies specifically?
Well, the aim is reportedly to stop the sexual bodies from becoming too active.
Because active sexual bodies would lead to
More clarity, more questioning among the electors, which would make it harder for the manipulators to get their candidate chosen.
That's a very specific claim about energetic influence on a physical process.
It is indeed.
And the marionettes and twists in the conclave. Any more on that?
The perception reported includes factions, but also one specific individual, someone isolated, but aware of these esoteric dynamics.
Aware of the manipulation?
Yes, and apparently seeking to bring clarity, maybe a different way of governing, wants to deconstruct the current system.
Who is this person supposed to be?
Described as relatively new within the Church. Recently became aware of the manipulation, which contrasts with his original motives, described as universal love, so a narrative of internal resistance.
But can this person actually change anything?
The perception is, probably not significantly, he might cause a shock, but lacks support and full understanding of the forces involved.
So he can't really change the election outcome or the system?
Not really. The potential is there, but he's too isolated, according to this view, a sense of thwarted potential.
Got it. And just looping back quickly, the DNA of the potential next pope, the African man?
Also reported as mixed reptilian and human DNA, reinforcing that earlier claim.
Okay. What about the impact on ordinary Catholics? Baptized, practicing ones.
The announcement of the death is seen as having the significant vibratory impact,
How so?
mobilizing their mental energies.
Yeah.
Seen as a way to remind them the Church is there and maintain control over their vibrations.
So a direct energetic link between the announcement and the believers.
That's the interpretation offered.
And an impact on the world more generally.
That vibratory layer around the Earth again, it gets reinforced,
And its effect.
creates adherence for anyone giving power to any dogma, not just Catholicism, reinforces dependence.
But there's another side.
For a smaller group, it acts like a mirror, strengthens their self-awareness, their resistance to being misled. So dual effect described.
Interesting. Let's talk about the Pope's hierarchical level.
Yeah.
Physically, he's a decision maker, right?
Physically, yes. But metaphysically, according to this source, no.
How is he seen metaphysically?
As a figurehead, a standard bearer for energies and consciousnesses beyond him.
So he has power within the human system for believers.
Right, but at the bottom of the metaphysical hierarchy, little actual decision-making power there, influenced by other structures and energies. It's a different view of power.
It definitely. Was there any difference felt in the impact between baptized Catholics and, say, non-baptized believers who follow some religious dogma?
Interestingly, no. The telepathic support reported feeling the same vibration.
Suggesting it's more about the belief system itself, the programming, rather than the act of baptism.
That seems to be the conclusion drawn in the session, yeah.
Yeah.
Even non-Catholic or non-Christian believers connected to a dogma feel an impact, though maybe weaker.
Okay. Now let's jump way ahead. The Vatican in 2055. Any vision of that?
A stark one, yes. The Vatican engulfed in fire, cries of suffering.
Fire. Literal fire.
Uncertain if it's metaphysical or physical, the transcript notes, but definitely suffering, and disincarnate consciousness is present.
Linked to ideas of heaven and hell, a promised reality, or maybe the opposite.
That connection is made, yes.
Yeah.
A pretty dramatic, almost apocalyptic potential outcome described there.
Wow. And after all that, Did the telepathic support have any final thoughts?
No, apparently that was it. No further important insights to share on Pope Francis's death at the end of the session.
Well, okay. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. And it was certainly a dive into the extraordinary.
Absolutely. We've covered a huge range of claims dimensions, DNA, prophecies, energetic programming, all from this one specific source.
And just to reiterate, our goal was simply to explore what was in this transcript, to understand the perspective presented.
Right, without confirming or denying any of it, just laying out the information.
Exactly. So for you listening, the learner, we hope this gave you something to think about, the scope of these ideas. What does it suggest about belief, about how we try to understand things we can't easily explain, the power of stories?
It's definitely a fascinating case study, isn't it? How information, even from really unconventional sources like this, can create such detailed, intricate worldviews.
So what part of this deep dive resonated most with you? Or maybe, what other questions does it make you ask? Especially about how we process information, how we build our own understanding of reality when we encounter claims like these.
Yeah, definitely leaves you with something to mull over.